Christmas, everybody.
All right. Hey, do you know why we celebrate Christmas, Emerson?
For baby Jesus' birthday.
That's right. Should we all sing happy birthday? No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. Yeah, let's see. What's your favorite Christmas movie? Do you want to tell them real quick?
Home Alone.
Home Alone. One or two? One or two? Important question.
2.
That's right. That's right. My God. Do you want to know what my favorite Christmas movie is? I don't know if I should say. It's called Die Hard. Wait, what'd you say?
That's not a Christmas movie.
Okay, well, you go sit down with your mom. To be clear, he has not seen it. It is not age appropriate for our 5-year-old. As soon as he turns 6, though. I'm just kidding. But, in case you missed it, there is a war raging in our nation right now. And no, I'm not talking about the culture war. I'm not talking about the political divide. I'm talking about there's a very real and weighty war going on, mostly online, about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not. Okay, now I don't know what side of this debate that you are on, but I'm going to spend the next hour and a half telling you why Die Hard really is a Christmas movie. Okay? You guys ready? Now, G.K. Chesterton is a famous philosopher, theologian from England. And it's legend has it, one day he was walking along when a reporter stopped him who recognized who he was and said, "Hey, would you give us your take on why the world is the way that it is? What's wrong with the world?" And he skipped all the interesting things that you would expect someone like him to say. He skipped, the political divisions. He skipped corrupt politicians and wars and famines and greed and all those things. He skipped all of these. And so when he was asked, what's wrong with the world? He simply said 2 words. I am. He said, what's wrong with the world? I am. Because he knew that what's wrong with the world is really in all of us. There's something in all of us. Now, that's not popular in our culture today. It's obsessed with self-esteem. But you and I are in a real pickle. I don't know if you're new to church and kind of, but the Bible's picture of reality. But we're in a pickle. We're made in the image of God with infinite value and potential on one hand. But also, we have serious issues. It's so bad the Bible even describes it as we are slaves to sin. Or maybe you could use the word hostages, as I might like to say. But there's a theologian named Reinhold Niebuhr who said, original sin is one of the only Christian doctrines you can prove scientifically. He says, hey, whether you're a saint or a sinner, everybody sins. And so it's no wonder the world is the way that it is. Doesn't matter how much education or money or resources you throw at it, it's sin in the heart of every one of us. And one way that I could attempt to describe the severity of the situation is it's as if we are successful business executives. I don't know if I think we have a little presentation here. And, we're in this successful startup company with a lot of potential. We're in Century City and like the nicest high-rise in the area. Let's just call it hypothetically Nakatomi Plaza, if you will. And as we are on our way to fame and riches and success, maybe celebrating all of our potential at, let's say, a Christmas Eve office party, terrorists from West Germany enter the building and take us all hostage, led by criminal mastermind Hans Gruber. Now, this is the reality, I'm saying this tongue-in-cheek, but the reality is this is kind of the picture the Bible has us in, is we are slaves to sin. The hostages have us outgunned and outmanned. We can't fight them. We can't take them over ourselves. And so really, when you're in this kind of situation, there's really only 3 options that you have. Number 1 is you can attempt to bargain with the terrorists. You can try to bargain with the terrorists. If you haven't seen the movie, there's this guy named Harry Ellis. He is a sleazeball co-worker of the main character's wife. He tries to put the moves on her early on in the movie, and he attempts to bargain with the terrorist. He lies, he's kind of sleazy, he tries to make some stuff up. Let me tell you, if you haven't seen the movie, it doesn't go well for him, okay? Bargaining with terrorists rarely goes well. And here's the metaphor here for us is a lot of the religious systems in the world really are just attempts at bargaining with terrorists, right? It's like, hey, if I give you something, then you give me something. If I check all your boxes, if I follow all your rules, if I jump through all your hoops, well, then you have to kind of let me go. People even try to use Christianity like that. Hey, I did all the things you wanted me to, get off my back, right? Let me live the life that I want to live. And so you can attempt to bargain with the terrorist. Let me tell you, that's probably not going to go too well for you. Number two, you can try to make the most of life as a hostage. You can just get used to it. Well, this is my lot. I guess I'll just, hey, being a hostage in the top floor of a skyrise is not too bad. Like you could still have quite a life for yourself. And this is the way we do things here in our lives when we pursue, hey, if I just get enough money, then my life will be okay. If I, sex, substances, travel, video games, whatever it is, these are really just attempts at settling and making the most of our life. But the reality is, you're still a hostage. You're still a hostage. It doesn't matter how nice you think your life is, you're still a hostage. And so that's option number 1 and 2. Option number 3 is you can wait to be rescued. You can pray to be rescued. And in the Old Testament, when God's people were waiting to be rescued, God told them through the prophet Isaiah in Isaiah 7, he said, this verse that even if you're not in church, you may have heard this language in Christmas songs because we know that this has to do with Christmas. And he says this, he says, the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel. Emmanuel. Now, this is really, really good news. Emmanuel is a nickname given to Jesus, but the first half of that sentence is really good news as well. But it's interesting. It's counterintuitive. God, he doesn't say that God is just going to zap us from the outside and make everything okay, or, hey, if you just, move resources around enough. No. It says he's going to send a person. He's going to send one individual, and they're going to come in, and they're going to make it right. And then it says his name will be Emmanuel. Now, Emmanuel is a nickname, and it means God is with us. God is with us. And this is really, really good news because at Christmas we celebrate what we call the incarnation. And in fact, we sang about it a minute ago in one of these songs. The incarnation is this idea that God enters into our world and becomes a human and saves the world from the inside. And that's why I think Die Hard is a Christmas movie. How does John McClane defeat the terrorists and set everyone free? Does he nuke it from the outside? Does he sit across the street with a sniper rifle? No, he comes into the building. He enters the building into the space where the hostages are. You could say he resonates. He lives kind of the life of a hostage briefly. He knows what it's like. He can relate. But from the inside, over the course of the movie, it's been out for 30 years, so I'm sorry if I'm spoiling anything out. You have plenty of time. Over the course of this movie, he takes down one terrorist at a time and eventually rescues them all and saves the day. And if I can be so bold to compare Jesus to Bruce Willis, I'm not doing that, but this is exactly what God does through the incarnation of Jesus at Christmas. He enters our world. God becomes a man. He lives the life we were unable to live. He died the death we deserve so that we could live God's life the way he initially designed us to. Or as Paul tells us in Colossians 2, he said, Jesus disarmed the spiritual rulers or authorities, you could say terrorists. He shamed them publicly by his victory over them on the cross. He sent them up an elevator with ho, ho, ho written on their sweatshirt. Okay, that's what Jesus did. Now, in the 1960s, you guys, some of you remember the space race. Some of you were there. Some of us learned about it in history books. Some of you maybe are waiting on that TikTok video to come around. But there was a space race, and the Russians, generally atheistic society, they sent a man to space, and he came back and he said, hey, I went to space, and I didn't see God out there. And so the Russians went around, and this is real. This actually happened. They said, hey, we sent a man to space. He didn't see God. Therefore, we proved God doesn't exist. That was in 1961. Well, C.S. Lewis was still alive at the time. This was the last year of his life. He responds to that comment in an essay called The Seeing Eye. And he said, if there really is a God, then people would not be able to relate to him like he's another person in our universe. You know, like he's your next door neighbor or something like that. He said, instead, our relationship with God is more like Shakespeare's relationship with Hamlet. Or if you don't know who Hamlet is, like Romeo and Juliet. Right? Romeo and Juliet, the only thing they can possibly know about Shakespeare as created characters of Shakespeare is what Shakespeare writes about himself in one of his plays. Y'all see what I'm saying? And Tim Keller tells a story about, there's another author named Dorothy Sayers who wrote these detective novels in the early 1920s and 30s in England. And the main character was this guy named Lord Peter Wimsey. He's a single man, he's a detective, and he had all these personal problems. He had depression and, had all these personal substance, addictions and different things, and just couldn't figure his life out. Well, eventually in the series, there's this woman that comes into the story named Harriet Vane. What's interesting is Harriet Vane looks a lot like the author Dorothy Sayers. She went to the same school as Dorothy Sayers. She even writes detective novels. And Harriet Vane, this character, comes into the story. She falls in love with Peter. They get married. They solve mysteries together. And Peter Wimsey, his character, is kind of healed through this relationship. What's interesting is Sayers essentially looked into the story that she created. She saw the pain and the loneliness of a man that she created. She fell in love with him, and she wrote herself into the story just to save him. I think it's fair to say that God has done the exact same thing in our world. God looked into our world, the world that he made. He saw me, and he saw you, and he saw us destroying ourselves and our world by turning away from God, and it fills his heart with pain. But he loves us. He saw us struggling to pull ourselves out from the traps and misery that we create for ourselves. And so what does he do? He writes himself into the story. Jesus Christ, fully God, fully man. He's born into a manger, born to die on a cross for us so that we might live. And so on Christmas, if you've been with us for the month of December, each week we're talking about what the real meaning of Christmas is according to different Old Testament prophets. And if I could put a bow on this tonight, this Christmas, we acknowledge that all of us are hostages to the terrorists of sin. But on Christmas, we celebrate that God came into our world to rescue us. And so my encouragement to you tonight, as you will sing a song in a second, we'll go out and you'll hang out with your family or friends or do whatever it is that you're going to do. Here's my encouragement. Stop negotiating with the terrorists. Stop settling in to life as a hostage. Because let me tell you, John McClane's in the building. Jesus Christ comes as God into the world to set us free. Merry Christmas, everybody. God bless you guys.